What is going on YouTube? This is Acid Root. So I'm going to review the pseudo debut album by Lil Scrappy. Basically, this project is called Bred to Die, Born to Live, and it came out in the late fall of 2006. So the reason why I say pseudo debut is just because Lil Scrappy's actual debut in terms of like the album retail format was basically the Trillville and Lil Scrappy album from early 2004. But he worked on this album for a couple of years, pitches like that. He kept his Lil Jon affiliation, but he also bolstered this affiliation with a little bit of 50 Cent and G Unit affiliation as well. Pretty good concept to get that in particular. Just some good concept. This was an album that was on the G Unit South label in addition to Young Buck and folks like that. I'd have to say so it's a pretty good pitch to kind of get this in particular. Now the problem with this particular album is this is one of Lil Scrappy's few albums in like the mainstream spotlight. He was definitely hugely popular back in early 2004 and 2005 and stuff, but this is the particular album, apart from the single Money in the Bank and maybe Oh Yeah Work, this particular project didn't necessarily flop, but it just didn't reach like the exorbitant sales that they were probably thinking it was going to. I don't consider this album to be a misnomer or something like that. It's just kind of the concept that for some reason it just felt like it underperformed compared to other folks that were popular around this time. And the Money in the Bank, basically the Money in the Bank song was popular throughout 2006 and early 2007, but for some reason this particular album just kind of seemingly underperformed, which is kind of a haphazard concept. I mean, this album's going to get a classic score. It's definitely an album I appreciate quite a bit. It's definitely going to get a pretty high in rave score. I'd have to say in particular, it's just kind of the concept that the next album that Lil Scrappy dropped after this one in early 2008 was called Prince of the South, and it just didn't have the boisterous kind of budget and gas that this particular album did. This particular album has E40 on here, Young Jock, Young Dro, 50 Cent, and Eminem production. Lil Jon's on here a number of times. You know, there's just some good folks on here in particular just to really get some of the stuff. Yo Gotti's on here, pitches like that. So it's just some good concepts. Sean P of the Young Bloods is on here. Lots of good stuff in particular kind of get this one. But for some reason, this album, kind of similar to the stuff that was kind of happening in 2006, 2007 with ringtone rap kind of being popular. Most folks just probably fucked with Money in the Bank and didn't really fuck with the other singles. Now, it's not to say these singles are bad. They just didn't really have the affable type charm of Money in the Bank. That was just a quotable type song, real ringtone ready and stuff like that. Typical stuff from like the late 2000s as far as that pitch kind of went. But this kind of the concept the other singles just didn't catch on as well as they needed to, which was different from Lil Scrappy in 2004. He just had more hits, like when he had songs like No Problem and Head Busta and some of those type ones. They just were a little bit more affable. It just felt like the bag of hooks that Lil Scrappy had this time. I do feel like they were good, and this is definitely like a classic album in my opinion as far as that pitch kind of goes with like Southern hip hop and late 2000s fairs. This kind of concept that just didn't translate quite as well casually as far as that pitch kind of went. But definitely some dope stuff here. I'd have to say this is not an album to be ignored. I would definitely have to suppose that's kind of the concept about it. But yeah, I look after it. It's just kind of, I mean, this was a good trend setting album, definitely in particular, just because of the concept that Lil Scrappy was definitely crunk around this particular pitch, but it was just an interesting amalgamation with like the ringtone rap era, I'd have to say in particular, as far as that particular kind of goes. Just being able, you know, Lil Jon was starting to boil over after 2006, after songs like Snap Your Fingers and some of those type of songs were starting to wear down a bit. But the ringtone rap era was popular with songs like We Fly High and Make It Rain and some of those type ones. Leather So Soft, some of those particular type songs, just in particular, some of those type pitches. Stun Like My Daddy, some of those type pitches in particular. Lil Wayne, Young Jock, some of those type folks. Jim Jones, a bunch of people like that at that same particular. But this is a good concept, just the concept that I would just give this album a try. This is definitely something that should be up folks' alley. If you do like that ringtone rap and snap rap type fair stuff that kind of goes along on here, this is a great album to look up just within particular. It's just the fact that I think casual wise, maybe Lil Scrappy from 2004 is a little bit better just in terms of like the affability. Just I feel like the Lil Jon affiliation was definitely there, but the problem with it was is even Lil Jon had started to die down in 2006, 2007. So he kind of struggled to put out his crunk rock album, which was supposed to come out in 2006, but didn't come out until way out in 2010. So this kind of concept. Lil Jon singles were underperforming. Just things were kind of changing. There just were some sounds that were shifting around this particular time. So it was just kind of the concept. A lot of translations and albums that just didn't come out in pitches like that. The tides shifted. Singles underperformed. And albums just didn't get released. Pitches, some of those type fairs. Lil Scrappy kind of, this album was a huge album, I'd have to say, in terms of for the most sense. I mean, it wasn't multi-platinum pitches like that, but it was at least a gold selling album. Some of those type pitches, it was a big deal in late 2006, but unfortunately, the budget just kind of left after this particular album. But I just look at it, still some good stuff. So there were 4 singles off this particular album. It was definitely tried to be promoted. I would have to say, in particular, a lot of good boisterous energy on here. Is the fact that if you're looking for another song like Money in the Bank, I'd have to say it may not have the full-blown catchiness of that particular song. But the other 2 singles that are at least released to crunk radio and pitches like that, some nightclub songs like Gangsta Gangsta and Oh Yeah Workers, some other highlights. They just don't have like the overall affable kind of casual charm of Money in the Bank, but they are good songs. So definitely have to say there's some nice ones. And Living in the Project's another nice highlight that just switches the pace up. So that's kind of the thing. But We'll go ahead and talk about the singles here. I do recommend all four of these. So the first single is Money in the Bank. The remix has Young Buck on there, which is the one that's on the album. So it's definitely a pretty highlighted one. It's like a classic 2000 Southern club hopper, I'd have to say in particular. It's like a ringtone ready chorus and energy that this song particularly kind of has. And this is just like a regular kind of outing hit. Real affable type one, just classic 2000s type fare, just within that relative pitch. Just some excellent type stuff to kind of get here. Just real replicated easily and just a good dance type vibe. Good song to get the twerking started. Pitches like that. Just some good overall dance energy and vibes. Real affable kind of vanilla club song at this particular stage. It's kind of an underappreciated song nowadays, I'd say. I mean, it was huge back 2006, 2007, 2008, but it's like snap rap and crunk music has kind of died down a bunch in the past 12 or 15 years, I'd have to say. This kind of a concept is this kind of the concept to dig up some of these gems and fuck with them again as far as that pitching goes, because it's definitely one of Lil Scrappy's biggest songs that I have to say in particular. It's just an easy highlight and a good overall one to kind of have just for some pitch dance energy. Definite nice one. Young Buck contributes to this song, and it's probably one of Young Buck's biggest songs as well, especially around that particular time as he started to phase out of like the mainstream spotlight as well as this kind of concept. But definitely appreciate that one. Gangsta Gangsta, this is the second single. This is another one that has some Lil Jon affiliation. I guess Money in the Bank didn't have Lil Jon affiliation, but the two singles on here, Gangsta Gangsta and Oh Yeah Work, has some Lil Jon affiliation. These are some nice ones, but Gangsta Gangsta is basically like a vintage Lil Scrappy and Lil Jon team up, I'd have to say. It's like a more rowdier turn up, I'd have to say in particular compared to Money in the Bank. This one's a little bit more hardcore type charge, but I'd say it's got an affable crunk energy about it, so that's definitely a pretty good concept. I kind of feel like the beat's a little bit plotting. It's definitely a good one, but this kind of concept is this more of like a Hulk smash type song, just in particular. This more plotting type bravado as far as that pitching goes. Definitely like a heavy stunt type song, just in particular. It works for what it is. Just kind of a more, just kind of rowdier type crunk song, and just more in like the hardcore type charge as far as that kind of goes along with that. I just think in terms of like the finesse, like the single format is just kind of one that just, gets more extreme than like the typical format of like casual type fare. It's not like it's a bad song. I appreciate this sort of crunk energy, but in terms of like affable, just for more typical kind of blue collar type fare, something you'd hear if folks are listening to folks like Justin Timberlake and like Mariah Carey and pitches like that. Not to say that Mariah Carey is not, with just the aspect of just more vanilla and tapioca type folks, or just other aspects like pop music or country music pitches like that. This is not quite as Apple, just within the extremity behind it like Money in the Bank is. But that's just kind of concept. I just look after there were singles on this particular album that just were more in the hardcore sense. In terms of like a song like Money in the Bank or No Problem, some of those type pitches, just within the aspect of just it being more hardcore related. But it is a nice song. Definitely appreciate this one. It's an easy one to mellow out to and just have some vanilla kind of crunk energy as far as that particular kind of goes. It's kind of concept about it, but I don't know. It's just kind of, it's really unfortunate that this album didn't perform better than it did. I feel like this is probably like a gold selling album, but it deserved to be platinum and probably multi platinum just because of the affable quality of it. Because this is just a fusion of like some real excellent crunk type fare. Lil Scrappy's really great at getting you revved up and pitches like that. Just some fight night type music, fight energy, cage energy, pitches like that. It's like an evolution of the sound that was in 2004, and Lil Jon evolved in those 2 years as well. So it's just some good concepts. But Oh Yeah Work is the third single. This has E40 and Sean P on there, which is the same concept of a song like Snappy Fingers. Both those cats were on the Snappy Fingers song, so it's a pretty good pitch. It's like a typical Lil Jon beat, but it's a nice one. It's an underappreciated Lil Jon beat, I'd have to say in particular, and Lil Scrappy song I would definitely feel like. And this is just some vintage snap energy, I'd have to say in particular. And it's pretty similar to like 2000s Lil Jon. It's definitely too bad that Lil Jon started to simmer down in like 2007, 2000, late 2006 as far as that particular fair kind of went, because these were definitely some good songs. I mean, maybe they were sounding just, you could almost say that they were starting to sound too much similar, but I just look after the concept. A lot of these are just some real boisterous and overall excellent type club bobs kind of having here. This energy is just easy to carry throughout nightclub energy, especially 2000s type fair to kind of get. Just within that relative sense, just some excellent aspects to kind of get here. Just typical kind of flash and this overall flair that just has a lot of pizzazz about it. Just works extremely well. This typical kind of fare for just like stepping out and just enjoying like the nightlife energy and like a more crunk type setting. Just some excellent stuff. So this works pretty well. E40 contributes to this song, and so does Sean P. It's just another good, excellent concept. If you like songs like Snappy Fingers, if you like some of those type songs that Lil Jon was on 2006, especially songs like that, can't really think of too many other crunk songs, but just the stuff like the stuff that E40 was doing in 2006, like You and That Booty, some of those type songs in particular, is just some excellent type concepts to get from Lil Jon. Just the sort of shit that he was working on in 2006 as far as that particular fair kind of goes. So some excellent stuff there. Living in the Projects was the fourth single, and this is a change of pace from the other three singles. This one's not as much of a club song or really a club song whatsoever. This is like a good reflective kind of homely tune, I'd have to say in particular. It's like a basic kind of steadfast and everyday type feel this song particularly kind of has. This is just good for like a vanilla kind of sunny summer day, I'd have to say. So it's a pretty good concept. This reminds me a lot of Tupac, not just the fact that Tupac's in the chorus sampled on the song, but also the concept of just saying this is just some basic kind of almost ghetto kind of summer energy, just in particular like summer cookouts, pitches like that, just reflective kind of barbecue music, some of those type pitches. Just good for like a good June, July, August, and fairs like that. It's an excellent concept to kind of get there. Excellent little bop to kind of get just within that aspect. Just more lazed and kind of more lazed and delicate, kind of sunny summer energy. Just in particular, as far as that pitch kind of goes, just some excellent stuff to kind of get. But it's another one that I kind of feel like this would have been a good pitch if someone like Tupac had kind of done it. Not to say anything against Lil Scrappy, but it just kind of feels like this would have been a great single to have had if the other singles had hit as heavily as they needed to. I definitely feel like the other two singles, Gangsta Gangsta and Oh Yeah Work, definitely should have. I think the reason why Oh Yeah Work didn't charge heavily was just the fact that Lil Jon was starting to simmer. He was starting to simmer down around this time as well. Maybe folks thought it was too similar to like You and That Booty and Snappy Fingers, some of those type pitches, but it's just kind of the concept that I mean, I tried to keep that particular sound. It's unfortunate that these songs underperformed because they were excellent and just prime Lil Jon pitches like that, prime Lil Scrappy, I'd have to say, but he just wasn't given enough of a shot to really just like flap his wings and pitches like that, I'd have to say. But Living in the Project's another nice highlighted one, just to change the tone and pitches like that, more homely type song that works pretty well. It's a good single, something Tupac would have done or Scarface would have done, folks like that. Just real introspective type one. So that's the basic concept about this particular album. So there's 20 songs on this particular album and minus 3 skits. That narrows it down to 17. And out of those 17, I wound up recommending to you 14. So really the only 3 songs I didn't recommend on here was just Born to Live, Baby Daddy, and Like Me. So to talk about those songs real quick. Basically, Born to Live, I just didn't really like the composition of this particular song. Kind of the guitar riffs on this particular song were just not that engaging. It was just kind of a clumsy type club type song. It was kind of one to kind of get you revved a little bit, but just didn't nail the vibes quite as well as it needed to, I'd have to say. Baby Daddy was just kind of a poor ladies type song that just didn't work quite as well. I just didn't really like. This one was just kind of more of a mixtape type fare, just more of that Don Cannon mixtape type stuff that you would have gotten from Jeezy and folks like that. Jeezy, Lil Wayne's stuff, something that feels ripped out of like Dedication 2 from 2006 by Lil Wayne or something like that, or Can't Ban the Snowman mixtape by Jeezy, just some of those Don Cannon type beats. But Lil Scrappy just didn't pull it off quite as well in this particular album far as that pitch going. It's not quite as compelling as it normally is on mixtapes. Maybe in like certain sense I could almost liked it, but this wasn't quite affable enough for me. And then Like Me was just kind of a poor type production on here. I just didn't really appreciate the engagement of that one. That was one of the few clumsy type ones on here that just didn't really have the Apple type energy. Just had a different approach towards it, where it was a little bit of a breezy type song, but this was not one I really appreciated the ambition of. Just in particular, just really didn't have like the Apple type one that just really sparked much interest for me as far as that pitch kind of went. But most of this album is pretty shredding crunk. I'd have to say there's a lot of good turn up songs on here. Some excellent ones like Posted in the Club, Gangsta Gangsta, Pussy Poppin', a lot of these ones, Nigga What's Up, some of those type ones, just in particular, just have some excellent energy. Touching Everything's another nice one. Just pitches like that, I'd say, oh yeah, work. Some of these most definite ones to kind of get here. Like Me, this was one that was just kind of a blunder in a lot of ways, I'd have to say. But that's the basic concept. This album's going to get a 10 out of 10. So we'll just go ahead and start talking about some of these songs I'd have to say. So Touching Everything with Young Jock's a pretty nice one. It's like a classic Scrappy and Young Jock team up, I'd have to say in particular. It's like some pounding kind of stunt music, I'd have to say. Nice club, like some pounding stunt music club song, I'd have to say in particular. And this is just like some good Friday night kind of flash, I'd have to say in particular. Pretty excellent damn one to kind of get here. Young Jock, of course, obliterates his verse. Real classic kind of Young Jock brings some swag rap to this particular song and nails it pretty well. And Lil Scrappy has that vintage kind of crunk energy. So it's just an excellent concept. There's a lot of good amalgamations of styles on here. Lil Scrappy teaming up with 3 6 Mafia, Young Jock, 50 Cent, Eminem, pitches like that. Just a lot of good concepts. Young Dro's on here, some pitches like that. Yo Gotti's on here. Just a lot of good, excellent type stuff to kind of get that works in a lot of ways. This is a good conduit for a lot of different Southern rap type styles that works in a lot of ways, and it's pretty effective. I'd have to say this is a good example of that. Classic club energy to kind of go and stunt to. This is a good one. This probably could have been a single. This might have been a better choice compared to like Gangsta Gangster or like Oh Yeah Work, but I feel like this is just another excellent type one. I mean, in my sense, I'm just not complaining about this particular album. It's just kind of the concept that just didn't really, it just was not packed with like the casual type fare, I'd have to say. Lord Have Mercy is a pretty highlighted one. This is produced by Eminem. Eminem's not actually on this album, but he at least produced one beat on here, which is a pretty excellent concept, just because you wouldn't think that Lil Scrappy and Eminem would kind of team up. But it's a pretty excellent type one. There is some 50 Cent and Eminem affiliation on here. 50 Cent at least helps out on the chorus. We'll get to that one. But basically, Lord Have Mercy has some stellar song character. I'd have to say in particular, it's like a great hook and Eminem beat. I'd have to say in particular, and this is just like a blustery kind of autumn afternoon ruminating. I'd have to say pretty good pitch for just like some fall brush as far as that particular kind of goes. Just some excellent type type stuff. Great song to listen to late October, November, pitches like that as the leaves are starting to turn color. Some of those type pitches as it starts to get cooler out and some of that type stuff. Real excellent Eminem beat, just real kind of like I was saying, just a real nice brushy type one. Great hook on here. Lil Scrappy really knocked this hook out of the park. It's a real sing-songable type one. That's probably one of the best choruses on this particular album. This probably could have been a single, I would have said. This would have been an excellent choice. I think this album probably could have gotten like the fifth, sixth, or even seventh single had it just had a little bit more casual appeal towards it. But all of these songs are pretty good. I'd say some songs like Touching Everything, Lord Have Mercy, Posted in the Club would have been a nice one. I feel like Pussy Poppin' probably could have been one. That could have been like a promotional single. So there's just some good ones on here. But Nigga What's Up's another nice one. This says 50 Cent on the chorus. He helps out with that. And this is like a really crazy cage-like energy that this song particularly kind of has. It's like a fight music and kind of crunk revved up manicness that this song particularly portrays. Pretty excellent concept to kind of get that. And this is just like an exhilarating kind of night fair, I'd have to say. This is a real carnivorous Lil Scrappy song. This is him basically back on his 2004 No Problem and Head Busted type fair as far as that particular flash kind of goes along with it. Just some excellent type stuff to kind of get here just within that relative pitch, I'd have to say. Excellent type stuff just within that energy, just a vintage type one, just some little. I mean, if you're looking for Lil Scrappy fight music, I definitely would say Nigga What's Up's a great one for that. Posted in the Club's a great one for that. Some of that vintage type energy, I'd have to say. Police is a pretty good one for that. Also, Lil Scrappy kind of on his scrappy type energy, some pitches like that. Say Gangsta Gangsta is a real nice one. So Lil Scrappy, he is scrappy on this particular album. If you're just looking for that flash that he had, the character that he had in 2004, 20 years ago, pitches like that. If you missed those type songs like Head Busted, some of those type ones, it is on here. Some of those ones I listed are like that. But basically, another highlight would be Posted in the Club. It's a pretty nice one. Definitely one of the best beats on this particular album. I'd say it's a 3/6 beat. Definitely pretty excellent stuff to get here. It's like a prolific and infectious night flash of a song, I would definitely have to say. This has great chemistry with 3/6 Mafia. I definitely feel like this is just a fusion of two crunk styles, I'd have to say. So it's the concept. 3/6 Mafia is pretty good crunk. Lil Jon's pretty good crunk. It's just a concept. Lil Jon may not be on this song, but the fusion of Lil Scrappy and 3/6 Mafia is a pretty excellent concept to kind of get here. This is definitely a real thrilling type one. Basically one of the best songs in the album, I'd say, despite the fact of the overall quality of this particular album. This is an easy and immediate one to kind of go for. It's definitely a highlighted one to kind of get. Real prolific, and this works extremely well. Ben and Boss is a pretty nice one. This has Ben and Boss has Young Dro on this. It's a real nice one. This is a getting revved up kind of evening pizzazz of a song, I'd have to say in particular. It's like a finishing tasks up and everyday kind of feeling this song particularly kind of has. This is just some everyday feeling kind of pull up music, I'd have to say in particular. By everyday feeling, just mean a workaday type feel. This is some blue collar type commerce just within a relative sense. I mean, this is obviously some hustlers type makeshift as far as that particular kind of goes along with it. Just some evening pizzazz kind of get here. Really like the concept of it. Yeah, basically just got done with task pitches like that. Just some overall evening type flash of just getting ready to get turned up pitches like that. Just finish up the last task. Just finish up the last bit of work. Some of those type pitches. Just get things ironed out and get ready to get crunk and just have some good times. It's a very exhilarating type song. I feel like this is definitely pretty nice one to kind of get here. This is like a kind of mini crunk song. I kind of feel like definitely one not quite as crazy as like Posted in the Club or Touching Everything or Oh Yeah Work or Gangsta Gangsta or Money in the Bank, but definitely like a primer for that particular type of sound to kind of get where it's just kind of one feels like ripped out of the Lil Scrappy album from 2004. Just more vintage, kind of early Lil Scrappy as far as the pitch goes, but it is a nice one just kind of get this one that's like a good primer just for, yeah, this is going to be a hell of a night type fair, I'd say. So really appreciate that particular one. Just some evening, everyday feeling kind of pull up music. Just a good one to pull up to and just kind of look snazzy and pitches like just really look fresh and pitches like that. It has in particular, so it's a pretty nice one. Just dope cut overall, I'd have to say. Pussy Poppin's a pretty nice one. It's real boppish, kind of good, nasty strip club highlight, I'd say in particular. This is interesting. This has Lloyd on here. I wasn't expecting him to be on this particular song. It just is kind of, I mean, this is a lot more like a more gnarled type strip club type song, not one that's just more rosy and kind of benevolent and just softer. I'd say this is really like a typical kind of Lil Scrappy, Lil Jon type tune. So it's just interesting to get Lloyd on this particular song. There's like a crunchy kind of club energy and typical night on the town energy, I'd have to say in particular. There's some excellent type stuff to kind of get here. Just real nice strip club type flash, real nice one. Pretty boppish type one. Just really appreciate the energy of this particular one. Probably need another song like this, but this is just like typical fanfare, especially in the 2000s. So this really feels like something Lil Jon would have done. Just, you know, standard cut here just works pretty well, but it's pretty nice. So I'm glad this song's on the album, I'd have to say. Get Right with Yo Gotti and Lil Chris is a pretty nice song. It's like a slumish kind of low-key smoke one energy about this particular song in particular. Just a great smoke one tune. Just some great smokage kind of energy. There's not a ton of smoking songs on here in particular. I feel like maybe Lord Have Mercy is a pretty nice one to kind of smoke too. Posted in the Club, some of those type ones. And I guess I would say that a lot of these songs are smoke ready, but in terms of this songs designated to smoke, and I feel like Get Right's a pretty nice one. This is like an in-between morning kind of hang out and mild turn up type song. I'd have to say in particular, and this is like a typical kind of social night. I'd have to say in particular, there's some excellent type stuff to kind of get here. But this one really reminds me of more residential type fare. I'd have to say there's some excellent kind of turn up just within that sense. Just kind of the concept of just being at the crib with some of your homies, some pitches like that. Just kind of PlayStation music on, just kind of PlayStation stuff, pitches like that. Watching Jackass, some of those type pitches. Just pizza on the dinner table, some of those type pitches. Some relative concept of just 2000s hangout type for it. I had to say, just good concept for that. But great smoke, just real great swisher kind of music pitches like that. I had to say it's a southern kind of bop, just really lazy and kind of droopy type song. Really like the kind of droopy production on this particular one. It's a real nice one. It's not necessarily like a turn up, not as gnarled and crazy as Lil Scrappy kind of gets, but it's just a real nice one, just kind of for some in between type moments. That's a pretty good one. Interesting pitch to kind of get Yo Gotti on here because he wasn't always on a ton of out. Yo Gotti wasn't on a ton of songs like that back in the 2000s. He kind of blew up more in like the 2010s, but it's just an early event, just kind of a vintage Yo Gotti verse, it had to say. And Lil Chris is on the song. It's a pretty good concept. G shit's a pretty nice one. It's like a vintage kind of 2000s G Unit energy about this particular song. I had to say this one reminds me of 50 Cent The Massacre. I definitely feel like Olivia's on this particular song. This just really feels like it's ripped out of The Massacre from 2005. Feels like one of those songs, like so amazing from The Massacre. Some of those type pitches, just a real plush kind of date evening and fraternize type bop. I'd have to say in particular, just real good concept for that. It's definitely a good bass song pitches like that. Just some good flair. Just some good flair for promo type feels as far as stepping out some of those type pitches, just looking snazzy, real another nice one to kind of get. Pretty much like the opposite of pussy popping, but it's just a good concept is for some snazzy kind of date energy, so it's a good concept for that. A surprising one on here is Police. Pretty good concept. This is definitely like a vintage kind of early 90s Politico noise. I'd had to say it's like a Buck the World type vibes, I would have to say in particular. And this is just like a 2000s crunk rendition of like Ice Cube vibes. Lil Scrappy on this particular song is definitely something that I would have seen Tupac or Ice Cube doing back in 1993, 1995, some of those type pitches. So it's just an interesting concept to get like a crunk rendition of like some of that Politico type fare from like the early 90s, more and like the more kind of Politico type fare that kind of went along with it. It's more Public Enemy type stuff, pitches like that. That's a pretty good concept. Definitely a song that's necessary. I'd have to say just a good concept. Get some of these in the 2000s as far as that pitch goes. Not every single person was doing this sort of thing, but it is pretty good concept. I do like Lil Scrappy on this sort of song just because of his carnivorous and just the overall defiant kind of energy. Just works pretty well to kind of see him in this. It's a great song for him to exploit just because of his character and just his overall fight starting type energy. Just works extremely well. And then I'm Back is a nice one. This is a great intro to kind of get on here. It's like a nice electro kind of crunk rumbler. I'd have to say in particular, it's like a get things started definite hit. I'd have to say, and it's like another stock kind of revved up festive fanfare of a song. I'd have to say, and it's just a pretty dope song. So this is a nice one. This is a great one to kind of get revved to some pitches like that. It's typical kind of electro energy, just pitches like that. It's a good one to kind of pop bottles, pitches like that. Just really get started, stand on couches, some of those type pitches that just getting turned up and just enjoying the weekend, or pitches like that, just having a day off, or just pitches in general, just having a carnivorous type time, getting ready to get crunk. Excellent type stuff to kind of get here. Lil Scrappy really packed this album full of club rumblers and pitches like that. I'd say just plenty of good tunes to kind of get in particular, just to get revved up and just carnivorous and pitches like that. Some excellent type stuff on here. Plenty of good, excellent songs, even some good introspective type ones, some ruminating type songs on here, like Living in the Projects and Lord Have Mercy, some of those type pitches. Good snazziness like G Shit, good infectious kind of crunk energy of just like 90s Politico type fare like Police. Some good turn up type songs like I'm Back and Touching Everything and Nigga What's Up and some of those type ones. Just some good in the club energy like Posted in the Club and Been a Boss and Oh Yeah Work and Gangsta Gangsta. So it's just filled with some of these. Album gets a 10 out of 10. The social score is going to get a 10 out of 10 also just because the pitch behind it. I just feel like this is a ferocious batch of energy. I would almost give it like a 9.7. I would almost give the social score of this album like a 9.75 just because of the pitch that there wasn't another casual hit on par with like Money in the Bank, I'd have to say. It's not like this is a bad album. It's just the fact that it kind of got ignored. This is not a bad album. It's just the fact that this album kind of got ignored just for the wrong reasons, I'd have to say in particular. Between the fact that Lil Jon's energy starting to die down and him not being as prolific as he was in 2002 and 2004, 2005, and just pitches like that. And just the fact that they need like ringtone rap and album sales were down, pitches like that. Folks were saying hip hop was dead. His southern rap wasn't doing quite as well, at least not in terms like casual and critic, or at least not in terms of critic wise and pitches like that. It was just very divisive back in those days, some of those type pitches. So there were Lil Scrappy had his fans, but he also had folks that felt like he was contributing to maybe rap not doing as well. I'd have to say is this kind of concept, but this is a definite classic album. I'm going to go ahead. I mean, either it getting like a 9.75 social or a 10 social, I just would have to say either pitch behind. It's just the fact if I gave it a 9.75, I'll just give it a 10 just because the concept that these songs are very festeringly good. I'd have to say there's tons of variety on here. There's like some good introspective songs. There's plenty of good club turn up type moments. There's some strip club songs on here. There's a little bit of makeshift in songs like Ben and Boss and some of those type pitches, and Living in the Project, some of those type pitches, I'd have to say. So it's filled with variety. Lil Scrappy's a pretty good songwriter, pitches like that. He definitely has the help of Lil Jon and 50 Cent, which bolsters him quite a bit. And it's just an overall varietized album that has a lot of impact. This is a classic Southern album, classic 2000 Southern album. Lots of good pitch. It's a fun album. On top of that, it has a lot of good boisterous energy and just nails it particularly well. There should really be no reason why you don't get excited with this type of music, even if it doesn't have a sheer hit highlight on the terms of Money in the Bank, I'd have to say. But still, the other two singles that are in Crunk vein are just as good, I'd have to say. And Living in the Projects is another good summer picnic on energy songs. This is kind of the concept. But in terms of the future, there is some more Lil Scrappy to get to. I'm definitely going to get to some of these mixtapes and pitches like that. And there's some further Lil Scrappy albums, despite the fact that this is probably his biggest album, I'd have to say. And he did kind of burn out after this. Not to say he burnt out in terms of quality, but just the fact that his commercial peak was probably with this album or the 2004 one, just between 2004 to early 2007. But I'd say there's still some good pitches. I do want to review Lil Scrappy's 2008 album, some of those mixtapes they dropped in like 2006, some of that type fanfare, I'd say. So it's an excellent concept. This is a classic, in my opinion, I'd have to say, and definitely some stuff that you don't want to miss out on.